Daniel Fisher had always been a man in control. His business empire, built from scratch, was a testament to his relentless drive and sharp instincts. His wife, Karen, had been by his side through every high and low, or so he thought. That morning, when his eyes fluttered open in the sterile, unfamiliar whiteness of a hospital room, the sharp pain in his head was the least of his concerns. The first sensation that hit him was the smell, that unmistakable hospital stench of antiseptic and the faint, metallic tang of machines whirring softly in the background. But it wasn't the pain or the confusion about how he ended up in this bed that unsettled him the most. It was the fact that he couldn't remember the last thing he did, the last thing that felt real. Nothing. A void. As his mind scrambled to piece together the fragments of memory, a voice cut through the haze. His wife. Karen. He couldn't see her, but he could hear the unmistakable lilt of her voice. He was surprised by the sharpness in her tone as she spoke, but what really caught him off guard was the conversation. He's not waking up. I mean, it's been days. I don't think there's any hope left, Adam. Karen's voice was tinged with something Daniel couldn't quite place. It wasn't sorrow. It wasn't fear. It wasn't even concern. It sounded like relief. And then another voice, lower and unfamiliar. Adam, are you sure? I mean, once he's gone? It's over, right? The man asked. Daniel's heart skipped a beat. What was this? A conversation about him, as if he wasn't there, as if he wasn't listening. Karen's reply was almost a whisper. It's the best option, really. No more pretending, no more stress, all of this, the company, the house, everything. It'll be ours. Daniel's stomach dropped. His mind reeled. The pieces, once so fragmented, were suddenly crashing together in a way that made no sense. His wife, the woman he had married years ago, the woman he had loved, was talking about him like he was an obstacle to be removed. And this man, Adam, he wasn't just a stranger. No, there was more to this story than Daniel could ever have imagined. Karen's next words sent a chill through him. And we can finally deal with Sarah. The way she's been talking, the way she's been sniffing around, she won't be a problem much longer. Sarah. The name hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. Sarah Lawson. The one employee he had trusted above all others, the one who had been with him since the early days of his company. She was loyal. She was honest. He had never questioned her loyalty. But Karen? She had already written Sarah off as a problem. Daniel couldn't believe it. Adam's voice broke through his thoughts. But if he wakes up, if he somehow pulls through, we'll have to move fast. We don't have much time. Once he's conscious, he could ruin everything. Daniel's mind raced. He knew what they were planning now. The car accident. It wasn't an accident. It was a calculated move, a trap designed to rid him of his life so they could claim everything he had worked for. They had planned it all, and now they were counting the days until his heart stopped beating for good. For a moment, Daniel wanted to scream, to make his presence known. But what would be the point? He was trapped in this prison of his own body, unable to move, unable to speak. He had no way of reaching out, no way to stop them from their twisted scheme. And then it hit him. He wasn't just in danger of losing his company, his wealth, his life. It was worse. They were already taking it all. The trust he had given Karen, the love he thought they shared, was gone, shattered into pieces like glass. What hurt the most, what tore at his insides, was the realization that Karen wasn't just stealing from him. She was betraying him in the worst way possible. With this Adam, they were already planning their future together. How much is the insurance worth again? Karen asked, the question casual, almost as if it was irrelevant. 10 million? If he dies, it's ours, right? And if we sell off everything, 50 million? Maybe more. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. 50 million. His entire life, the sweat, the tears, the years of sacrifice, it was nothing more than a number to them. A prize. A prize that Karen was willing to claim at any cost. Yeah, Adam replied, his voice a little too eager. And once Sarah's gone, we'll have complete control. We can turn this company into what we want it to be. No one will question us. The words settled like lead in Daniel's stomach. Sarah, his most trusted employee, was the next target. He had always known that running a business was ruthless, that it required tough decisions. But he never imagined it would be his own wife and her lover scheming behind his back to take everything from him. Daniel's thoughts were interrupted when the door creaked open. A new voice entered the conversation. A nurse. He recognized her voice, the calm, soothing tone. She was the one who had checked on him during the night. "How's he doing?" the nurse asked softly. Karen's voice shifted immediately. It became syrupy sweet, almost convincing. No change. Still the same. No improvement. But Daniel could hear the faint tremor in her voice, the crack in her facade. The nurse nodded, her shoes tapping lightly against the floor as she made her way around the room, checking his vitals. The moment she left, Karen's tone turned cold again. "We can't wait forever. He'll never wake up, Adam. We need to act soon. We can't risk him waking up and ruining everything." It was then that Daniel knew what he had to do. He had to play along. He couldn't let them know he was awake, couldn't let them know he could hear everything. He had to gather all the information he could before they put their plan into motion. And when the time came, when the moment was right, he would make them pay for this. Days blurred together in the sterile silence of the hospital room. Daniel remained motionless, his body a prisoner to the pain and the haze of his own unconsciousness. But his mind, sharp as ever, worked overtime, clinging to the fragments of information he'd overheard. Karen and Adam's conversation played over and over in his head. Each word, each detail dug deeper into his soul. This wasn't just about money. It wasn't just about a cold, calculated theft of his company. It was about his life being nothing more than a piece on a chessboard, a sacrifice in their twisted game. He knew what he had to do. But how? How could he possibly fight back when he couldn't even move? He was a spectator in his own life, trapped in the confines of his own body. But the more he thought, the clearer the plan became. He would have to bide his time, gather more evidence, and let Karen and Adam believe that he was still lost in the fog of unconsciousness. The longer they thought he was helpless, the more they would reveal. In the days that followed, the hospital room became a place of careful listening. Nurses came and went, checking his vitals, changing the drips, the machines beeping in soft symphonies. But it was the voices, Karen and Adam, that he strained to hear the most. They were always there like a shadow, lingering just beyond his reach, discussing their plans, their next moves. Karen was relentless in her determination. Daniel overheard her in snippets, each conversation more chilling than the last. "You're sure it's working?" Adam asked, his voice low, cautious. Karen's reply was sharp. "We don't have time for second guesses. By the end of this week, he'll be a vegetable, Adam. He won't be able to do anything. The insurance, the company, it's all ours." "And Sarah? What about her?" Karen paused for a beat before responding, her tone dripping with contempt. "She's already out of the picture. I've already arranged for her to be fired. The sooner she's gone, the better. We can't afford any loose ends." Daniel's heart hammered in his chest. Sarah? Gone. Fired. All because she had been loyal. All because she had worked alongside him from the very beginning. He knew Sarah. She wasn't a thief, wasn't capable of betrayal. And now Karen was about to destroy her, simply because she stood in the way of their plan. It made Daniel sick to his stomach. But it wasn't just Sarah. It was everything. His company, his reputation, his life. All of it was slipping through his fingers, falling into the hands of two people he thought he knew. His wife, his partner, had become a stranger in his eyes. He had trusted her, loved her, believed in her. And now, she was the mastermind behind his destruction. The woman who had stood by his side through thick and thin was now planning his death for profit. Every conversation Karen had with Adam felt like a knife twisting deeper into his gut. She spoke so casually, so coldly about their plans. She didn't even seem to care. The more Daniel heard, the more he realized the depth of the betrayal. It wasn't just about his money or his company. It was about power, control, and the complete destruction of everything he had built. "Once we're in charge, we can cut costs, fire half the staff," Karen said one evening. "We can make everything leaner, more efficient. That means more profit for us, Adam. This isn't just about the insurance. It's about making everything ours. All of it." Daniel clenched his jaw, fury boiling inside him. To think that the woman he had shared his life with was plotting to destroy everything he had worked for. His employees, his friends, they were all nothing more than obstacles to her. And the worst part? She had no remorse, no hesitation, just an insatiable hunger for more. But Karen wasn't done. The following morning, as Daniel lay motionless in his bed, she visited him again, talking with Adam about what to do next. "Do you think he's really gone?" Adam asked, a note of uncertainty in his voice. Karen's voice was steady, unyielding. He's gone enough. The doctors say it's only a matter of time. He won't wake up, not unless some miracle happens. And we both know that's not going to happen. We need to make sure everything is in place. Daniel's breath hitched in his throat. The doctors said he might never wake up, but the thought of them discussing his death with such cold detachment was unbearable. How could they speak so freely about his life as if it were nothing? He wasn't just an asset to them. He was an inconvenience. What about the company? Adam asked. We still need to make sure it's sealed. After the insurance money, we'll need to take control of the board, reorganize everything. We'll be the ones pulling the strings. It'll be perfect. Daniel could feel the rage coursing through him. Everything he had built, everything he had sacrificed for, was being torn apart. His company, the business that had been his pride, was now the prize in their sick game. And then a detail caught his ear that made his blood run cold. Don't forget about Sarah, Karen added, her voice dripping with disdain. She'll try to get in our way. She's already too much of a liability. If we're going to make this work, we'll have to cut her out completely. Daniel's mind raced. Cut her out? They were going to destroy Sarah, the woman who had been nothing but loyal to him, the woman who had worked tirelessly by his side, who believed in him when no one else did. And they were going to frame her for something she hadn't done. He could hear the scheming in her voice, the chilling calmness in her words. He couldn't let it happen. He couldn't let them destroy Sarah, or anyone else for that matter. But he was trapped, powerless. As the days went by, Daniel's sense of time began to warp. Was it hours? Days? He couldn't tell anymore. But the one thing he knew for sure was this: his wife and her lover were growing bolder, and the window of time to stop them was closing fast. He needed a plan, but first he needed to hear more. With every conversation, Karen and Adam dug themselves deeper into their lies. And Daniel, the man they thought was gone, was quietly listening, learning everything he could. Every detail, every secret. Soon, he would strike back, but for now, he would stay silent, stay still. Let them think they were in control. The more they underestimated him, the better the chance he had to bring them down. The days stretched on, each one blurring into the next, as Daniel lay in his hospital bed, the weight of the betrayal sinking deeper into his chest. He had heard enough now to understand the full scope of Karen and Adam's plan. His wife, the woman who had once shared his dreams, was now plotting his death for money and control. The company he had spent his life building, the employees who had trusted him, all of it was hanging by a thread. But even though his body remained at the mercy of his injuries, Daniel's mind was sharp. He wasn't ready to give up yet, not by a long shot. The more he listened, the more pieces of the puzzle fell into place. But there were still things he didn't know. Things that, if he was going to make his move, he had to learn. Karen and Adam, so confident that he was nothing but a soon-to-be memory, continued to speak freely about their plans, unaware that Daniel's mind was still very much alive. That evening, after the nurse had left the room and the hospital had settled into a quiet hum, Daniel's ears perked up as he heard the familiar voices once again. "I'm telling you, it's almost over," Karen said, her voice low, almost whispering. "We've given it a few more days, and then it's done. All of it." Adam's voice was hesitant. "What if something goes wrong? What if he wakes up?" "I don't like this, Karen. It's too risky." Karen's response was firm, almost cold. "We've waited long enough. He's not waking up. The doctors said it themselves. His chances are almost zero. This is our last opportunity. Once he's gone, it's ours. The company, the insurance money, we'll have everything." Daniel felt a wave of disgust ripple through him. They were speaking about him like he was nothing more than an obstacle in their way, a pawn to be removed in their game. He wasn't even a person to them anymore. Just a ticket to the life they wanted. "And Sarah?" Adam asked again, the unease still present in his voice. "What about her?" Karen didn't hesitate. "She's already been taken care of. I've spoken to her supervisor. She'll be fired for embezzling funds. We'll make sure the paper trail leads back to her. She won't be a problem for us anymore." Daniel's heart sank. He had trusted Sarah. She had been with him from the beginning, through the long nights, the grueling days. She had never given him any reason to doubt her. And now Karen had turned her into the scapegoat. It made him sick. He couldn't let this happen. Not to Sarah, not to the company, and certainly not to himself. But he still had no way of acting. He had to stay still, to remain silent, and let them think he was out of the game. Karen's voice broke through his thoughts again. We can't wait any longer. I'll keep him in the dark, just like we planned. The doctors will keep feeding him their lies, and we'll make sure everyone else is too distracted to notice what's really happening. If he doesn't wake up, then it'll be all ours, everything we've ever wanted. Daniel couldn't stand it any longer. He had to do something, but he still had no idea how. The window was narrowing. Karen and Adam's plan was unfolding with a speed he couldn't match. But he had to think. There had to be a way to outsmart them. His mind raced as he recalled the details he had overheard. The mention of the insurance policy, the company, Sarah being framed for embezzlement. It was all falling into place. But what was the next move? How could he fight back when he was trapped in his own body? He remembered the night of the accident, the strange message from Karen, the urgency in her voice. She had claimed someone was chasing her, that she was in danger. And yet, when he had arrived at the location she mentioned, there was no one there. The whole thing had felt off from the start. It had been too convenient, too perfect. What if this had all been orchestrated to lead him right where they wanted him? The more Daniel thought, the more pieces began to fit. He remembered how he had rushed to her side that night, how the road had seemed unusually quiet, how the shadows had moved in strange ways. He had been so focused on reaching her, on protecting her, that he hadn't seen the trap closing around him. Was it all a setup from the beginning? His mind flickered back to Sarah. Sarah had warned him before the accident. She had told him about a troubling dream, a dream where he had been involved in a car crash. She had even told him to be careful, to watch out. At the time, he hadn't thought much of it. He'd brushed it off as just a weird coincidence. But now? Now it seemed too much to ignore. Was Sarah involved in this? Was she somehow part of their plan? No. He refused to believe that. She had been nothing but loyal. But the questions nagged at him. How much did she know? Had she seen something that tipped her off to Karen and Adam's scheme? Or was it just a random warning, something her intuition had picked up? Daniel had to clear his head. He couldn't get lost in the what-ifs. He had to stay focused. There were still things he needed to understand. Things he needed to hear before he could make a move. And then, as if on cue, Karen and Adam appeared again in his ears. Everything is going according to plan, Karen said. Once he's gone, the company will be ours. We can do whatever we want. Adam's voice came through, still uncertain. Are you sure about this? What if someone figures it out? What if someone realizes what we've done? Karen's response was final. No one will know. We've covered our tracks. And if anyone comes looking, we'll make sure they're dealt with. Everything will be ours. We just have to wait. The plan was set in motion, but Daniel wasn't ready to let it go. Not yet. He had to find a way to fight back. He wasn't about to let them destroy his life, his legacy, his company. He was still in this fight, and it was time to make them realize that. He just needed to wait for the right moment, the right chance. And when it came, he would strike with everything he had. Daniel's mind churned, each thought a twisted knot of betrayal, fear, and determination. He was lying in that hospital bed, his body still battered, unable to move or speak. But his mind was wide awake, sharper than ever, piecing together the shattered remnants of his life. The voices of Karen and Adam haunted him like an ever-present shadow, the weight of their plans bearing down on him with each passing minute. It was all becoming clearer now. The more he listened, the more the pieces of the puzzle slid into place. This wasn't just a fight for his business. It was a fight for his very life. A life that, according to Karen and Adam, was already as good as gone. As he lay there, his thoughts returning to the night of the accident, Daniel tried to remember every detail. He had been working late that night, poring over contracts, going over financials, making sure the company's future was secure. He had planned to go home, but then he got the message from Karen. It was strange. She sounded desperate, something he hadn't heard in her voice before. I'm by the river. Someone's after me, Daniel. I'm scared. Please hurry. The urgency in her words had jolted him into action. He didn't think. He just ran to his car and drove as fast as he could to the spot she'd mentioned. It wasn't far, but the drive felt endless. The fear in her voice had gripped him like a vice, and his only thought was to get to her, to protect her. But when he arrived, the riverbank was empty. No sign of Karen. No one around. Just the cold, quiet night. His instincts had screamed at him to drive away, but he hadn't listened. And that, in retrospect, was his biggest mistake. The accident had happened so fast. One moment he was thinking about Karen's words, wondering where she was, and the next, the world around him had exploded in a blinding flash of pain and chaos. The next thing he knew, he was in the hospital. And it all made sense, or at least as much sense as it could. Karen had led him right into the trap. She had set him up, knowing that he would come running, knowing exactly where to find him. And Adam? Adam had been there too. The man who had been in the shadows, waiting for this moment, waiting to claim everything that Daniel had worked for. As he lay there, trapped in his own thoughts, Daniel realized something else. He hadn't just been set up for the accident. No, this was bigger. It was about everything, the company, the money, the power. It was all about control, and Karen and Adam had plotted every detail, every move, every word. They'd been planning his downfall long before the accident. And there was more. Sarah, his loyal, hard-working employee. She had been framed. He couldn't believe it at first, but as the pieces fell into place, it became clear. Sarah had been too close to the truth. She had seen things. She had caught on to Karen and Adam's scheme, and that had made her a threat. So they had to get rid of her, just as they were planning to get rid of him. The more Daniel thought about it, the angrier he became. They had betrayed him in the worst possible way. His wife, his business partner, the woman who had promised to stand by him through thick and thin had turned out to be the architect of his destruction. And Adam? He was just as guilty, lurking in the background, waiting for the moment to strike. But Daniel wasn't done. Not yet. He couldn't afford to let them get away with it. He had to fight back. But how? The answer came to him slowly, almost imperceptibly. He had to use their own arrogance against them. They were so sure of their success, so confident that he was already dead in all but name. They had underestimated him. They thought he was weak, broken, but he wasn't. Not yet. Daniel had always been a man of strategy. He had built his business from the ground up with nothing but his wits and his ability to outthink everyone around him. And that's what he was going to do now. He would outthink Karen and Adam. He would use their own greed, their own hubris to bring them down. But first, he needed more information. He needed to hear more. He needed to know everything they were planning, every move they were making. So he remained silent. He lay still, pretending to be lost in the fog of unconsciousness. He had to make them think they were in control, that they were winning. Only then would he have the upper hand. And it didn't take long for them to slip up. Karen's voice, once so composed, started to show cracks. The pressure was getting to her. She was beginning to question everything. She was beginning to doubt. It was only a matter of time before she made a mistake. Daniel listened carefully as she spoke again. Once he's gone, Adam, we can finally breathe. The company will be ours. We can do whatever we want with it. No one will stand in our way. Adam's voice was skeptical. And what about the board? They won't just let us take over. We'll deal with them, Karen snapped. I've already talked to some people. They'll fall in line once Daniel's gone. They'll have no choice. Daniel could hear the confidence in her voice, but it was starting to unravel. They were too sure of themselves. They had already made their move, but they didn't realize just how close they were to losing everything. And then Karen's next words hit him like a punch in the gut. And once we've taken care of Sarah, we can finally get rid of all the dead weight. The company will be ours, Adam, just like we planned. Daniel's blood ran cold. They were planning to destroy Sarah. Not just fire her, destroy her. They had framed her for something she didn't do, and now they were going to finish the job. They were going to take everything from her, just like they were taking everything from him. His mind raced. He had to act fast. He couldn't let them destroy Sarah. He couldn't let them get away with this. But how? He was still trapped in this bed, unable to move. Still a prisoner in his own body. But not for long. Daniel had a plan. And when the time came, he would make Karen and Adam regret ever underestimating him. He wasn't done. Not yet. He was going to fight back, and when he did, it would be with a vengeance. Daniel's thoughts were a chaotic storm, but there was a singular clarity within the turbulence. Michael, the homeless man who had saved him, the wild card in Karen and Adam's carefully orchestrated plan. Michael, for some reason, had become a thorn in their side, and that made him essential. Daniel couldn't afford to waste any more time. He had to find a way to contact him. But it wasn't easy. Every move he made had to be calculated, every decision precise. If Karen or Adam suspected anything, it could all come crashing down. Daniel had to continue playing the role of the unconscious patient. It was the only way they would keep underestimating him. It was the only way he could learn more. That night, as the hospital room settled into the quiet hum of the machines and the distant sounds of nurses' footsteps in the hallway, Daniel's ears caught the faint murmur of voices outside his door. He held his breath, knowing that this was another opportunity to learn more. It's only a matter of time now. Karen's voice was laced with an eerie confidence. We've waited long enough. Daniel will be out of the picture soon, and then we can take full control. Adam's voice was quieter, hesitant. But what about that homeless guy, Michael? What if he's been talking? What if he said something to the cops? Karen's laugh was short, mocking. He's a nobody, Adam. Don't worry about him. We'll handle it. We've got the evidence, and no one's going to believe a street rat over us. Daniel could almost feel the weight of her dismissive attitude. She was so sure of herself, so certain that everything was in her grasp. But as he listened, a small part of him rebelled. Michael might have been homeless, but he wasn't stupid. And if Michael was the key to unraveling Karen and Adam's lies, then Daniel couldn't waste another second. The door opened, and Nurse Emily entered, her presence a quiet relief in the otherwise tense atmosphere. She checked the monitors, adjusted the IVs, and glanced at Daniel's still form. Her movements were methodical, but there was something different in her eyes tonight, a kind of knowing that hadn't been there before. Daniel could feel it, even though he couldn't move to acknowledge her. She leaned over him, speaking in hushed tones, as if to herself. I know you're still with me. You don't have to pretend anymore. I'm not going to let them get away with this. Just hang in there. I'm going to help you. Daniel's heart thundered in his chest, though his body remained motionless. She knew. She had to know. Nurse Emily had seen through the facade, and that could be his chance. The next few days passed in a strange rhythm. Karen and Adam continued their conversations, growing increasingly arrogant, and Daniel absorbed every word. They didn't seem to realize how much he knew now, how much they had revealed about their plan. They were so fixated on their goal, so sure that their victory was inevitable, that they made mistake after mistake. It was during one of these conversations, when Daniel was lying completely still, that he heard something that made his blood run cold. They're going to find out eventually, Adam muttered, his voice tight with frustration. We can't keep this up forever. Someone will figure it out. Not if we take care of everything first, Karen replied sharply. We've covered our tracks. Sarah's already been framed. No one will look at her twice. And once Daniel's gone, it's a done deal. We can sell off everything. The house, the company. We'll be rich. We'll control everything. Daniel clenched his jaw. The casual way Karen spoke about Sarah's destruction, the woman who had been loyal to him, who had always had his back, it was as though Sarah's life had no value to her. And he couldn't let it happen. He had to save Sarah, even if it meant putting himself in even greater danger. The pieces were all falling into place, but he had to move quickly. Karen and Adam were getting bolder. They didn't think Daniel would wake up. They thought they had already won. But Daniel wasn't about to let that happen. He wasn't ready to give up yet. The opportunity to reach Michael came sooner than expected. One afternoon, as Daniel lay in his bed, Emily entered the room again, this time with a quiet urgency. She checked his vitals quickly, then turned to him with a soft, almost imperceptible nod. She was giving him a signal, as if telling him that now was the time. He had to act. He had to get the information he needed to expose Karen and Adam. And Michael, the key witness, was his only chance. If he could reach him, if he could get the truth from him, maybe, just maybe, he could end this nightmare. Nurse Emily left the room, but Daniel knew that this was his moment. He focused on his breathing, making every effort to remain still, to keep the appearance of a man who was still lost in unconsciousness. Time was running out. He heard the door creak open again, and in walked a familiar face, Sarah. Her presence was a bittersweet relief. She hadn't been fired, not yet at least, but she was still in danger, and Daniel had to get her out of it. "Daniel," she whispered, though she must have known he couldn't respond. "I don't know how much longer I can keep this up. I'm doing everything I can, but they're closing in. I can't let them take everything from you. I just can't." She was close now, and Daniel could hear the fear in her voice. She wasn't just worried about herself. She was worried about him, about everything they had worked for. And somehow, that gave him strength. He couldn't let her down. He couldn't let her pay for Karen and Adam's sins. "Just hang on," Sarah said softly. "We'll make it right. I'll get you out of here." Daniel wanted to scream, to tell her that he was already planning his next move, that he wasn't finished yet. But all he could do was lie there, pretending, waiting for the right moment to strike. The door clicked shut, and once again, Daniel was left alone with the ticking clock of his own fate. The pieces of the puzzle were falling into place, but they had no idea what was coming for them. He had learned enough, and soon it would all come to an end. The days blurred together, each one feeling like a repeat of the last, yet each one pushing Daniel closer to his breaking point. His body remained a prisoner in the hospital, his mind, the only part of him, still free. He had learned enough to know that Karen and Adam had underestimated him. They thought they were in control, that they had already won. But Daniel was far from finished. The more he listened to their conversations, the more confident he became. They were too cocky, too eager to claim their victory. They thought his life was already decided for him. But Daniel wasn't going to let that happen. Not after everything he had built, not after everything they had taken from him. It was a quiet morning when Daniel heard a conversation that made him realize just how close he was to taking action. The door creaked open, and he knew Karen was coming in. She had been more present than usual lately, almost as if she was trying to make sure he stayed out of the picture. He could hear her footsteps as she approached, her voice soft but filled with an unmistakable confidence. "We're almost there, Adam," she said. "Once he's gone, everything will fall into place. I'll take over the company, and you'll be with me every step of the way. It'll all be ours." Daniel's blood boiled at the casual way she spoke about their plan. She wasn't just taking his company. She was taking everything, his legacy, his hard work, and the trust he had placed in her. And Adam, his supposed business partner, had been complicit in this betrayal from the beginning. Adam's voice, though filled with uncertainty, still carried the remnants of greed. What if something goes wrong? What if he wakes up? What if he remembers something? Karen's voice cut through his doubts with a chilling certainty. "He won't. Trust me, the doctors have confirmed it. His chances of waking up are next to nothing. He's already gone. It's just a matter of waiting now." Daniel could feel the anger bubbling up inside him. They had convinced themselves that he was a lost cause, that he was already gone. But Daniel was still here. He was still fighting, even if they didn't know it. "And once he's gone, what about Sarah?" Adam asked. "She's been with him for years. She's not going to just disappear without a fight." Karen's laugh was cold and dismissive. "Sarah will be taken care of. She's already been framed for embezzlement. We've got the evidence, Adam. We'll make sure she takes the fall for everything. No one will question us. Once Daniel's out of the way, we'll have complete control. The company, the house, everything. It'll be ours." Daniel's heart felt like it stopped. Sarah, she had been loyal to him. She had believed in him, and now Karen and Adam were going to destroy her. That just like they were destroying him. But Daniel knew Sarah. She wouldn't go down without a fight, and neither would he. As Karen and Adam continued to discuss their plans, Daniel steeled himself. He couldn't let them get away with this. He couldn't let them tear everything down, not without a fight. But he still had to be careful. He couldn't afford to act too soon. He had to wait for the right moment, the perfect opportunity to expose their lies. The days passed in a blur of conversations and plans, and Daniel used every moment to gather more information, to learn more about their twisted plot. He could hear them growing more comfortable, more confident, and that gave him hope. Their overconfidence would be their downfall. Then one evening, as Daniel lay motionless in his bed, he heard something that made his blood run cold. It was Karen again, speaking with Adam, her voice filled with an unsettling calm. "We need to take care of Michael," she said. "He's been talking to too many people. He's starting to get too curious about what happened to Daniel." Adam's voice was hesitant. "What do you mean? He's just a homeless guy. What could he possibly know?" Karen's response was filled with cold precision. "He saw something. He was there, Adam. He saw us at the crash site. We can't risk him getting in our way. He's dangerous now. He's a loose end, and loose ends need to be tied up." Daniel's heart pounded in his chest. Michael, the man who had saved his life, the one person who knew what had really happened that night. If Karen and Adam were planning to get rid of him, it meant they were afraid of the truth getting out. He had to find Michael before they did. Michael was his only chance to expose Karen and Adam's plan for what it really was. But how could he possibly reach him? He was still trapped in this bed, his body a prison. He had no way of contacting Michael, no way of warning him. But then he remembered Nurse Emily. She had been kind to him, had shown signs that she might be willing to help. If anyone could get him in touch with Michael, it was her. Daniel had to trust her. He had no other choice. The next day, when Emily came in to check on him, Daniel could sense that she was different. She was more purposeful, her movements quicker, her gaze lingering on him just a little longer than usual. It was the perfect moment. He focused on his breathing, making sure to remain still, as if he were still unconscious. When Emily looked up, he caught her eye, and with a quiet, almost imperceptible nod, she acknowledged that she understood. "Everything's going to be okay," Emily whispered, though her voice was barely audible. "I've got someone who can help." Daniel's heart raced with a mixture of fear and hope. This was it. Michael was out there, and with Emily's help, he would finally have the chance to stop Karen and Adam before they destroyed everything. Emily left the room, and Daniel lay there, feeling the weight of the decision he had just made. He had to trust her. He had to hope that she was the ally he desperately needed. As he lay there, his thoughts racing, one thing was clear. The moment of truth was approaching. The time to act was near. And when the moment came, Daniel was ready. He would bring Karen and Adam down. That no matter what it took. The game had just changed. The tension in Daniel's mind grew unbearable as the days dragged on. He could feel the pressure building with every passing hour, the walls closing in as Karen and Adam's plans began to take shape. The end was near for him, they thought. But they hadn't counted on one thing. Daniel wasn't finished yet. He waited patiently for Nurse Emily's next visit. The silence between them in the hospital room spoke volumes. She had become his ally in a game he hadn't chosen, but one he had no choice but to play. She had been his first real hope since the moment he woke up in this hellish reality. She was the one person who understood what was at stake. Finally, the day came when Emily quietly entered the room, her face more determined than ever. She checked his monitors, took a deep breath, and looked at him directly. It was a small, almost imperceptible gesture, but to Daniel, it meant everything. She was ready. Without a word, she stepped closer, leaned down, and whispered, "I've found Michael. He's safe for now. We'll meet tonight. Just hold on." Daniel's heart surged with hope. Michael, the man who had saved him from the wreckage, was the key to everything. He had witnessed the whole thing, the crash, the attempt on Daniel's life, the truth that would unravel Karen and Adam's lies. Now, with Emily's help, Daniel would finally have the chance to expose their treachery. That night, Emily arranged for Daniel to meet Michael in the hospital's back entrance, a place hidden from the eyes of prying staff and security cameras. As Daniel lay in his bed, he focused all his energy on maintaining the charade, keeping his body still and his breathing shallow. He knew that the next few hours could change everything. The hospital corridor was eerily quiet, the usual hum of activity subdued in the late hour. Daniel could barely hear the soft click of Emily's shoes as she approached, the sound of her footsteps a sign that the moment was almost upon him. She walked in briskly, keeping her head low to avoid drawing attention. "I've got him. Michael's waiting in the stairwell. We can't risk bringing him in here. You have to listen carefully, Daniel." Daniel's chest tightened. It was happening. It was all coming together. He nodded slightly, signaling that he understood. Emily moved quickly to the door, glancing around the hallway before returning to Daniel's side. "I'll stay outside," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "When you're ready, we'll talk. You're not alone in this anymore." Daniel exhaled deeply, pushing away the panic that threatened to take hold. He had one shot at this. He couldn't afford to fail. With every ounce of strength he could muster, he slowly willed himself to sit up, keeping his movements subtle. His entire body screamed in protest, but he didn't have time to care. He was going to get out of this. He rolled carefully to the side of the bed, pressing the button that unlocked his restraints. His heart raced as the door to his room creaked open just a fraction. Emily's voice came through again, soft but steady. "It's time." He took a deep breath, pushing himself forward. The hallway stretched out before him, dark and quiet. He moved with purpose, as though he had been awake all along. The stairwell was just ahead. When Daniel reached Michael, he saw the man sitting against the wall, his worn face looking up in surprise. Michael had been the one who pulled him from the wreckage, the one who had helped him survive. Yet now, here they were, in the same fight for survival. "I've been waiting for you," Michael said, his voice gravely but filled with understanding. Daniel nodded, his throat tight. "I need you to tell me what you saw, Michael. Everything. I can't take them down without you." The homeless man's face softened, his eyes weary but resolute. "I saw it all. They were there, Daniel. I was walking by when I heard the crash. I saw your car slammed into that guardrail. I tried to get to you, but it was too late. I heard them, Karen and Adam. They were talking as they stood there, watching you. They said they had to make sure you didn't survive." Daniel's world tilted, the anger boiling inside him. They had been there, lurking in the shadows, making sure the job was done. But Michael wasn't finished. "They didn't think I saw them. But I did. I saw them both standing there, just out of the light. Adam was worried. He was talking about the insurance money, how much they could get if you didn't pull through. It wasn't just an accident. It was planned." The truth hit Daniel like a freight train. His mind raced, his body shaking with fury, but also with relief. The plan was finally coming together. He had the proof he needed. He wasn't just a victim anymore. He was a survivor. "We can't let them get away with this," Daniel said, his voice steady despite the storm brewing inside him. "They've destroyed everything, my company, my trust, my life, but I won't let them destroy me." The two men exchanged a look of understanding. Michael wasn't just a witness. He was an ally, and together they would bring Karen and Adam down. The next day, Daniel's plan began to unfold. He used the evidence Michael had given him, the proof that Karen and Adam had been at the scene, their voices recorded, the insurance scam, the framing of Sarah. With Emily's help, Daniel had all the ammunition he needed. The police were contacted, and with Michael's testimony, the truth came to light. Karen and Adam were arrested, their plans exposed for the world to see. The company was saved, but more importantly, Daniel's life was reclaimed. As he stood in front of the board of directors, now fully recovered, Daniel spoke to the room full of people who had once looked at him with pity, but now saw a man reborn. "I've learned the hard way that not everything that looks like love is genuine," Daniel said, his voice calm but firm. "And not every plan is foolproof. But we have a chance to rebuild. We have a chance to grow. We've been given a second chance, and we owe it to each other to make sure we never forget what really matters: trust, loyalty, and doing the right thing, even when no one is watching." The room fell silent, every eye on him as he stood tall, a man who had been broken but was now whole again. "Sometimes it takes losing everything to understand what you truly have," Daniel continued, his voice a little quieter now. "And when you find the truth, even if it's hard to hear, it will set you free." As the room erupted in applause, Daniel knew that the battle had been won. But the real victory lay in something far more profound: the understanding that even in the darkest moments, we all have the power to rise again, to reclaim what's ours, and to never let the lies win. And in the end, that's what truly mattered. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to today's story. We truly appreciate your attention and engagement. The lesson we can all take from this story is the importance of loyalty, trust, and resilience, even in the face of betrayal. It reminds us that the truth always finds its way to the surface. And no matter how dark the situation may seem, there is always a way to rise above and overcome. To support our channel, All we ask is that you like this video, leave a comment below to let us know where you're watching from, and share your thoughts on the story. We love hearing from you and value your feedback. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you never miss another inspiring story. Your support means the world to us, and it encourages us to continue bringing you content that we hope resonates with you. Thank you once again for being part of our community. We look forward to sharing more stories with you in the future.